Profits are better than wages. Wages make you a living. Profits make you a fortune. And what's exciting for kids to know is you can make a profit long before you can legitimately earn a wage. Can't we teach kids to buy a bottle of soap for $2 and sell it for $3? Make $1 profit? Can't we teach kids to take $1, search the neighborhood, and find a broken wagon and pay $1 for it, and bring it home and put some sweat equity into it, we call it in real estate, sand it until it's clean, paint it red until it shines, and straighten out the wheels until they're true, and then take it back to the neighborhood and sell it for $5. Does a child then deserve $4 profit? And the answer is yes. Society now has a mended wagon, and whoever created the value deserves the profit. And here's what's exciting. Age doesn't matter. Whoa. So I'm teaching kids all kinds of ways to make a profit in a new book I've got coming out. I teach kids how to have 2 bicycles, one to ride and one to rent, right? It doesn't take long to get into business and make a profit. Now, here's what's every American's heritage. Here's every American's heritage and Canadian's heritage. 1, to make a living. 2, to make a profit. You're not just restricted in North America to making a living. The door is wide open to making a fortune. Now, it's a little difficult to make a fortune as a living. Being paid wages, a fortune. Some people do. The guy that runs Disney, year before last, Disney paid him $200 million, which is a fortune. But most of us are not in those circumstances. But it is possible still to earn a fortune, part of it by being valuable to the marketplace, and the other part by the wise use of your resources. If you will take those 2 things home with you and concentrate on it. How can I become valuable to the marketplace and my family, and how can I wisely use my resources the rest of my life? If you'll pick up on that and get bright and clever and become a genius in this regard, I'm telling you, you can have whatever you want. It belongs to you. Now, here's the third 10 cents. And that's passive capital. Meaning providing capital for someone else to use, and you make a profit or an increase in the stock, or you make interest on the money. Some capital projects require more capital than one person has, so we have what we call capital pools. Banking institutions and stocks and bonds and mutual funds and all the rest to accumulate capital from all of us. Then they use it on unique products and projects and pay us interest on the money or an increase in what we bought as the mutual fund. So passive capital also earns you a profit and interest and an increase in the value of the stock or the bond or whatever instrument you bought. And kids can do this as well as grown-ups. It doesn't matter who you are. Passive capital. Now, here's what's exciting about passive capital. I teach kids a Bible philosophy. Here's what it teaches. The borrower is servant to the lender. The borrower serves the lender. And if you teach kids properly, among some of the things they would like to be, guess what they'll probably say? I want to be one of them lenders. That seems like that's where the power is. Seems like that's where the good life is, being one of them lenders. And if you can talk kids into being lenders instead of just spenders, I'm telling you, they'll pick up on it. You got to tell them that's where the power is. That's where the influence is. No telling where you'll be able to go and who you'll be able to see and what you'll be able to accomplish if you become one of those lenders. Part with some of your capital, let someone else use it. They do the active part, you do the passive part, but you still get paid. This you work on. Your project in building an organization, that you work on, called active. This you provide, called passive. This, charities to support worthy projects. Your self-esteem will soar here if you support projects that are worthy, that give you that incredibly good feeling. It'll show up in your ability to make a profit and your ability to provide passive capital. Now, I promise you, if you started this project when you were 15 years old and you worked it until you were 35, you would be financially independent. You would not have to work anymore for the rest of your life, only by choice. Whoa. Can you imagine what kind of an extraordinary life that would be? Now, it's not that you would quit working, but you could rearrange your labor portfolio to do some things you've always wanted to do, some project you've always wanted to get involved in. This is the way to do it. Okay? Now, jot this down. This 70, 10, 10, and 10 is what I call the ideal. The ideal. The average that everybody should consider. But now that I've shown it to you, you might not be able to start there. I don't know where I've caught you. In fact, you might be in such bad financial shape at the moment, your formula might read 1 or 97, 1, 1, and 1 instead of 70, 10, 10, and 10. It might take all of this to start the process of bailing you out of trouble. But now, as time unfolds, all you have to do is start with pick up the ideal and start where you are and work toward it. That's the key. Establish the ideal and work toward it. Guess who can do that? Anybody. Establish the ideal health profile and work toward it. Push up by push up, right? Cutting back by cutting back. All of the necessary things of a good diet and all the rest, just start working toward it, start working toward it. The ideal weight and the ideal person you'd like to be to present yourself to the marketplace. And it doesn't matter whether it's health or financial independence. Set up the ideal and start working toward it. Then take great delight as this number starts coming down and these numbers start going up. And as long as you're making progress toward a pre-established goal, number one, it creates self-esteem that you can't buy with money. Number two, it creates a return. It starts to show early as this whole thing starts to change. Now, once you have made this progress over here to where you're spending only 70 cents and investing 10, 10, and 10 here, now when your fortune starts to increase, even this has to change. Because some of the people I know couldn't spend 70% of their income. It would be obscene. My numbers now, I spend less than 10% of my income. Now, I appreciate that. My father would applaud me as well. Especially saying I'm single now, you know. I've been single for about 6 years. Now, married, I live a little more lavishly. This figure would probably skyrocket when I'm married. But single, it doesn't take much. And I love to be married, and my stepchildren from 2 marriages are still part of my extended family. I live an unusual life. But now, single, I live very modestly. The last car I bought 5 years ago was a little Plymouth Laser. I paid $13,000 cash for it. And I got my motorhome, and I got a couple of motorcycles, and that's about it. And a tent, you gotta have a tent. Married, yes, that all changes. But see now, with living on 10%, you can imagine what this might be. This, in my active capital account, my passive capital account, these numbers have all totally changed because now I can easily live on 10% of my income. So I'm giving you the ideal to set up. This is what you teach kids because they can probably do this right away. Then if you're in bad shape, you start here and you start working toward it. Then you start looking for the day when this number starts coming down. You cannot believe the excitement of when what you have to spend for making a living starts coming down, 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 down. And your ability to part with some of your treasure for projects like this starts going up, up, up. It is transformation of the highest kind. R.G. Letourneau maker of the big earth-moving machines many, many years ago, set this as a goal to someday be able to give away 90% of his income. Guess what he did? He reached it. Somebody says, well, that's an awful lot to give away. You should have seen the 10% that was left. Andrew Carnegie had this goal. It's a good one for your notes. I'm going to spend the first half of my life accumulating money. I'm going to spend the last half of my life giving it all away. That goal so inspired Mr. Carnegie that he accumulated $450 million the first half of his life. And the last half of his life, he gave it all away. But what an extraordinary way to live. To see how much you can give away, not how much you can get. Hey, with a little bit of moxie, with a little bit of intelligence and some skills, I'm telling you, you can accumulate a good income and you can wisely use your resources. But this game to play, you've got to come on up the mountain. You've got to see the view from up here. You've got to have the feeling from up here of having a long reach and benevolence beyond belief. It is extraordinary. Okay. Now wrap up with these notes. Here they are. Number one, keep strict accounts. Don't be lazy now in keeping strict accounts. Doesn't matter what you've got. One, you need a plan. I told Shof if I had more money, I'd have a better plan. He said, no, if you had a better plan, you'd have more money. Keep strict accounts. You've got to know exactly where it comes from. And you've got to know exactly where it goes. Part of it is the discipline to make you ready for higher callings. Don't settle for a mediocre calling and let yourself slide in keeping accounts. Keep strict accounts so that you'll be in tune and ready. When the better place is available, you'll be ready because of these early disciplines. And one of the early disciplines is to give an account. The ancient story said the master had 3 servants and he gave them talents. And one day he said, I need an accounting. He said, you have 5. What'd you do? He said, I turned it into 10. You had 2. What'd you do? He said, I turned it into 4. He said, you had 1. What'd you do? He said, I got the same 1. Master said, take it away from him. Give it to the one that's got 10. And accounting shows where we are, shows whether or not we're responsible. We ask our kids to take tests all during the year to do what? Give an accounting of how much they've learned, whether or not they've goofed off the whole year and let it all slide. We got to know, so we take a test or we put the numbers on the page. I'm asking you to be responsible enough constantly to put the numbers on the page and take a look where you are and be responsible for the full accounting, from the pennies to the dollars to the fortune. Key. Now here's the last part. On financial independence, the last part is simply attitude. Attitude. I had some changing to do here. 1, I had to come up with a picture. 2, I had to develop a good plan, work toward it. Now I've sailed right on by this. But you got to have a good attitude. First is a good philosophy. Second is execution. Third is the good attitude. So work on some attitudes. I had to work on them. Here's what I used to say. I hate to pay my bills. Shof said, well, that's one way to look at it. I said, well, doesn't everybody look at it that way? He said, no, some of us don't hate to pay our bills. I couldn't imagine that. Those envelopes, right, with the window in them, right, you know. He said, no, Mr. Rohn, let's see. If you hate to pay your bills, here's what you hate to do. When you pay a bill, when you pay $100 on an account, here's what happens. Your liabilities go down and your assets go up. So you really hate to have your liabilities go down and your assets go up. I said, well, no, I wouldn't hate for that to happen. He says, well, that's what you've just told me. When you pay your bills, that's what happens. I said, I see it. So remember, if you haven't written it down, write it down now. It all depends on how you look at it. Everything depends on how you look at it. How you're going to respond to this whole weekend is going to be how you look at it, how you view it. Someone says, ho hum, I've heard all this before. Someone else says, I'm going to walk out of here and change my life forever. I'll never be the same. See, it all depends on how you look at it. I did a seminar many years ago once in Northern California. My representative was out selling the seminar. It cost $50 to get in. The representative said, you got to come here, Jim Rohn. Only cost $50. A lifetime of experience put in one evening, 4 hours. This person said, I can't imagine spending $50 for a seminar. No seminar is worth $50. You can go to a movie for $6 for an evening. And this person said, no, you don't understand. There's going to be 1,000 people there. It's not a $50 seminar. Who would go across the street to attend a $50 seminar? Nobody. It's a $50,000 seminar. And the reason it only costs you $50 is because the other 999 people are picking up part of the tab. See, this seminar these 4 days was not a penny ante seminar. If you added up what everybody paid, right, times everybody that attended, it's a pretty good size accounting. But see, that it all depends on how you look at it. And Schoaf said, if you hate to pay your bills, that's one way to look at it. And you can let that hate consume you. You can let it upset your day. You can let it poison your system to where you react negatively to the marketplace and your pay starts going down instead of start going up. You got to change your attitude. We don't have to change circumstances, just change your attitude. I used to say, I hate to pay my taxes. Schoaf said, well, some of us have gotten way beyond that. I thought I couldn't imagine anybody that didn't hate to pay their taxes. He said, well, it depends on how you look at it. Here's what taxes are. Taxes, that's how we care and feed the goose that lays the golden eggs of freedom and liberty and democracy and an army to stand ready and a navy to stand ready and an air force to fly at a moment's notice and a policeman to walk the beat while you sleep. That's what taxes are for. To feed the goose that lays the golden eggs. I said, I never thought about it like that. Somebody says, well, the goose eats too much. That's probably true. Congress is working right now on putting the goose on a diet. So it is true, probably the goose eats too much. But here's the clue to come to. Better a fat goose than no goose. And truth be known, we all eat too much. Let not one appetite accuse another. Unless you're skinny as a rail, you cannot criticize the government. Congress is going to try to work on that diet. You got to work on your diet. We've all got to work on our diet. But here's the key. It depends on how you look at it. Okay. Everybody must pay. I'm writing a book now, and I think the title is going to be, of course, Kids Should Pay Taxes. It's going to be a good book. You'll like it when it comes out. In California, kids do pay taxes. The big debate is, should they? My book's going to answer the positive side of that debate. If a child in California walks into 7-Eleven, buys something that costs $1, the proprietor now asks him for 7 more pennies. Kid says, what's these 7 pennies for? And the proprietor says, that's the taxes. Kid says, I'm only 8 years old. Proprietor says, congratulations, you're my youngest taxpayer. Give me the money, 7 pennies. If you want to ride your bicycle on the sidewalk instead of in the mud, you got to pay 7 pennies. So even kids have to pay, and it's legitimate to pay. We all have to pay. To keep tyranny over there instead of over here, what do you think it costs? How much are aircraft carriers? We can't use used missiles. It's expensive. For somebody to stay awake all night so you can sleep all night, what does that cost? You got to be willing to pay and pay cheerfully. Here's what I became when I learned this lesson. A happy taxpayer. You say, well, they misuse the money. What do you care? It's not up to you to decide how they use the money. It's up to you to legitimately say, I will pay as long as the law says pay. When it changes, I will change to the new changes, but I will exercise my responsibility. Why? Everybody must pay. Here's my last story. Ancient script says this in a unique story. Jesus and his disciples were in the synagogue one day, the church, and they were standing by the treasury, watching people come by and put in their donations and put in their contributions. And the story said some people came by and put in large amounts. Some people came by and put in modest amounts. Then the story says a little lady comes along and puts in 2 pennies in the treasury. And Jesus said to his disciples, look at that, 2 pennies. They said, 2 pennies? What's 2 pennies? Jesus said, no, you don't understand. She gave more than everybody else. They said, 2 pennies is more than everybody else? Jesus said, of course. Here's why. Her 2 pennies represented most of what she had, so she gave the most. What a lesson to learn. Now, here's what did not occur in this scene. I'm so brilliant, I can give you what the author left out. This is it. Here's what did not occur. When the little lady put in her 2 pennies and walked away, Jesus did not reach into the treasury and get those 2 pennies and run after the little lady and say, hey, hold it, little lady. My disciples and I have talked it over, and we've decided that you're so pitiful and you're so poor that we're going to give you back your 2 pennies. I'm telling you, that scene did not occur. If it would have occurred, she would have been insulted. She would have said, the 2 pennies represented most of what I had. Would you insult me by giving me back my 2 pennies and not make a contribution? That scene did not occur. Let me give you the benefit of the wisdom that's left out of the story. Here it is. Jesus left her 2 pennies in the treasury, meaning everybody has to have the opportunity to pay, even if it's only a couple of pennies. Wow. In America, to leave the bottom third of our citizens off the federal tax rolls is insanity of high magnitude. And I wished I had the chance to say it with high certainty. So take great delight in paying. Number 1, we learned earlier, for what it makes of you. Number 2, for what it accomplishes. Now take these notes on leadership and I'm finished. I've just got to give you 3 or 4 highlights here so that you'll continue the study. But the challenge is widespread for leadership. Schools, education, industry, politics, sales, building an organization, industry, and I could go on and on. But here's one of the most important challenges of leadership: parenting. Being responsible, first as a role model, 2 as a teacher unparalleled. Who can substitute for your eloquence at home? Don't get lazy with the use of words and eloquence to portray the vision of the future for your family. It would be a tragedy if you were careful with your organization and careless with your children. If there's ever a place to exercise your skills, it's at home. Parenting, the great challenge. Here's what leadership is: a chance to step up above the mediocre. Now here's the key. With leadership challenge comes, number 1, opportunity, but number 2, responsibility. And yes, it's important that the 2 go together, because unless opportunity is handled with responsibility, it soon disappears and evaporates into nothing. If you've got the opportunity to have a family, now you must exercise the responsibility, or the family will disintegrate. The opportunity loses its impact unless it is carefully nurtured and led and guided and fed, inspired by leadership. One of the greatest gifts you can develop here is the gift of leadership. You know, forget about the money. You're going to make plenty of money. Forget about rich. You're going to be rich. You're going to have plenty of income and plenty of money, and now you know how to wisely use your resources. I'm telling you, one of the greatest gifts you can get here is the gift of skills, the gift of imagination, the gift of insight, the gift of being able to ponder the pathway and show somebody by your own words a lamp where they can walk and a light for their pathway so they can see where to go. Beyond yourself. Now here's some of the refinement of leadership that's important to consider. Number 1, be strong but not rude. Rudeness we don't need. Strength we do need. We don't need anybody pushy. Now you can't stop short of accomplishing what you need to accomplish, but here's what you must do. Do it with enticement. Do it with inspiration. Don't do it with rudeness. It's uncalled for in a truly sophisticated society. You don't need to be rude with your family. Strong, yes. Rude, no. Here's the next one. Be kind but not weak. Some people mistake weakness for kindness. Bad mistake. Kindness is a certain strength. If we're going to be kind to people, you got to tell them the truth. If you're going to be kind to someone, you got to show them the pitfalls as well as the opportunity. You can't just cross your fingers and hope. That doesn't give people a kind way to go. That's not kindness. That is desperation personified. You can't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. That's not how it's going to work out. It only works out by deliberate plan and execution. That's kindness, showing people how it really works and what the deal really is all about and the dangers that really are there along with the opportunity. Every opportunity will be challenged. Not to think so is naive. That's kindness. Next. Be thoughtful but not lazy. Yes, you've got to think and you've got to ponder, and yes, you've got to wonder, and you've got to read and you've got to research, but you can't just be a dreamer. We need dreams, but you can't just sit around and dream all day. Dream sufficient to drive you to action. That's the dream you need. Here's another one. Be humble but not timid. There's no place for timidity in the march towards success. Some people mistake timidity for humility. Bad miscalculation. Here's why. Humility is a virtue. Timidity is a disease. It's a treatable disease. You can drive your timidity into such a small corner that faith will operate in the rest of the house. Deal with your timidity and develop your humility. Have a sense of awe and the wonder of it all. The immensity of it all. The miracle of it all. I have now acquired the ability to feast on my own intellect. I love to be around people, and I love these kind of meetings, and I love the rallies, and I love the big crowds, and I love to sign, and I love to do all the stuff I'm doing and take pictures, and this whole thing. But I'm telling you, I love to be alone. I don't mind solitude. Why? I have the ability to feast on my own emotional content and my own intellect that reaches out and wonders and ponders and thinks about life and all of its aspects. I'm asking you to be so like-minded. Next, be proud but not arrogant. We all have to work on this a little. School pride, yes, there's a place for school pride and community pride and company pride and organization pride and personal pride, but don't cross the line from pride to arrogance. Pride we need. Team spirit and pride we need, but we don't need arrogance. We don't need arrogance in the marketplace. We don't need arrogance at home. It causes more damage than you can possibly imagine. So don't cross the line. And you know the worst kind of arrogance? Arrogance from ignorance. I mean, that's the worst kind. If a guy's smart and arrogant, we can handle that. But if a guy's dumb and arrogant, I mean, that's too much. Here's the next one. Refinement of leadership skills. Humor without folly. This one's important. It's okay to be witty, but not silly. Nobody wants to follow somebody that's silly. We don't mind following somebody that's witty. You can be truly, highly sophisticated and have plenty of wit. Churchill had plenty of wit. The lady in Parliament said to Churchill, for some of his beliefs, said, Mr. Churchill, if you were my husband, I would poison your coffee. And Churchill said, dear lady, if I was your husband, I would drink it. Whoa. I love good wit. Zig Ziglar is so witty. Zig is so good. Zig says money isn't everything, but it ranks right up there with oxygen. Zig's good. Next, under leadership, learn all the laws. The basic law of averages. If you do something often enough, you'll get a ratio of return, and it works for anybody. Talk to 10 and get one. I'm telling you, if you talk to 10 more, you'll get another one. And the ratio can be increased. Get a ratio started and work on it. It works for everybody. Let the ratios work on your behalf. The 80-20 rule. All leaders must learn. 20% are going to do 80%. 80% are going to do 20%. Don't fight that. Just work with it. Here's how you work with it. Spend individual time with the 20%. Group time with the 80%. Key little things to learn in leadership. Next, learn the law of sowing and reaping. It's very important, especially in your business. The sower went out to sow the seed. Some of it fell by the wayside and the birds got it. They're always out there. But you just got to carry on. Here's why. You can plant more than the birds can get. Once you decide that, everything's within your power. Don't lose your power and say, well, everything's against me, everything's against me. No. If you'll turn around, the law of averages will work for you. If you only get 1 out of 10, I'm telling you, work 1 out of 10. If you've been here a long time and you can get 9 out of 10, if we have a contest and I just started and I can only get 1 out of 10, if we have a contest, I will beat you. You say, how can you beat me? I can get 9 out of 10. You can only get 1 out of 10. Well, if we have a 90-day contest, here's what I will do during the 90 days. While you talk to 10 and get 9, I will talk to 100 and get 10. And you wind up with 9, I wind up with 10. I beat you. One is I have an overwhelming desire to win. And my second overwhelming desire is for you to lose. Now, that's benevolent on my part. Here's why. You learn more from losing than you do from winning. So I wish to be benevolent. Here's what you've got to learn to do with the law of averages. Make up in numbers what you lack in skills. When you get the skills, I'm telling you, the numbers will start working more and more and more and more in your favor. But at first, make up in numbers what you lack in skill. Nobody has to be behind here. Learn a few of these lessons. The sower went out to sow the seed and the birds got some. And then it said some of the seed fell on rocky ground and the soil was shallow. There's plenty of that out there, but you don't have to worry because you're going to depend on the law of averages. It said the little plant started to grow. First hot day, it withered and died. Somebody said boo and he quit. He said, I thought sure he would last 30 days. He told me I could retire on him for life and he's gone. Don't you worry about that. Here's the key. Stay in the field. Now the sower sows and the seed falls on thorny ground. The little plant grows and the thorns choke it to death. Cares of life, it said, little things choking people out of big opportunities. It is not easy to watch. But you have to take it into account. It's one of those things like the sun coming up in the east. You don't even need to study it. All you need to be is prepared for it. Did you ever watch somebody get choked to death? Whoa. Meeting time. The screen door's off the hinges. Guy says I couldn't make the meeting, got to fix the screen door. It's not easy to watch, but you have to take that into account. But then it said the seed fell on, finally, good ground. And let me give you this promise. Write this down. It always will. If you share a good idea long enough, it will fall on good people. The law of averages says it will. And you've got to trust that and go work it. And don't do anything less than accumulating the numbers that'll start to work in your favor. Then it said, of those that did start from the good ground, some produced 30 and some 60 and some 100. You can get plenty of 100. But you got to be satisfied with some 60, and you got to be satisfied with some 30. And I used to try to make the 30s 100. No, you don't need to do that. In my early enterprises, someone asked me, Mr. Rohn, do you teach people to be nice in the marketplace? I said, no, I just hire nice people. It's called shortcut. And here's what's the joy. Some will produce 100%. Some will go beyond your wildest imagination. Some that you took the time to sow the seed. Yes, you went through the birds, and yes, you went through the hot weather and the shallow soil, and yes, you went through the thorny times, but I'm telling you, some will survive, and some will grow, and some will produce beyond your imagination, and it is always delightful when the student far surpasses the teacher. Next, all leaders must understand the fact of good and evil. You've got to be like a shepherd of the flock. You've got to be like a mother and a father to the children. In building enterprise, you've got to be carefully looking for ways to nourish, and you've got to be carefully looking for ways to protect against the enemies. Every enterprise will be attacked. Every good will be threatened. Liberty is always threatened by tyranny. Health is threatened by illness. It's the nature of the game we play. But here's what you've got to do as a wise steward, as a wise servant for the master, and that is to take care that you fight the enemies and nourish the values. There is good and evil. And here's what the prophet said: love good and hate evil. Develop and nourish the good, and despise and fight to the best of your ability the evil. In World War II, it took 50 million lives to finally get the evil stopped in the world that had us by the throat. And whatever price it takes, you got to protect your family. There is both good and evil. And here's the challenge. Some people have given themselves over to the dark side of their nature. You've got to be on the lookout. The scenario said, there are shepherds and there are sheep and there are wolves. And to protect the wolves so that the wool is, or to protect the sheep so that the wool is unique, we've got to not only nourish the sheep, we've got to protect against the wolves. And I'm asking you to be ever mindful. Some people, you cannot afford their productivity. They've given themselves over to the dark side of their nature. Why? We don't need to know why. It's like the sun coming up in the east. It's not your prerogative to try to figure it out, and you don't need to take 14 classes on social psychology. All you got to do is observe carefully until you can learn to pick those that may not be good for your future, nor for your children, nor your family. Every leader must understand the story of the frog and the scorpion, and I'm about finished. It says the frog and the scorpion appeared on the bank of the river about the same time. The frog was about to jump in the river and swim to the other side. The scorpion comes along, sees what's happening, and says to the frog, "Mr. Frog, hold it. Looks like you're about to jump in the river here and swim to the other side." And the frog said, "That's right, watch me." Scorpion said, "Hey, hold it, hold it." Said, "I'm a scorpion and I need to get to the other side, but being a scorpion, I can't swim. Would you be so kind? I'm very light, being a scorpion. Would you let me hop on your back and you take me across the river? It'd be easy for you, and just deposit me on the other side. I'd be forever grateful." The frog looked at the scorpion and said, "No way. You're a scorpion, and scorpions sting frogs and kill them. I'd get out there halfway and you'd sting me and I'd drown. Do you think I'm crazy? No way." The scorpion said, "Hey, hold it, hold it. With your frog brain, you're not thinking. If I stung you out there halfway, you'd drown, but so would I. I'm not interested in committing suicide. I want to go to the other side. Please." Frog says, "Okay, that makes sense. Hop on." Scorpion hops on the frog's back. They start across the river. Sure enough, halfway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog. They're now both in the water, about to go down for the third time. The frog cannot believe what's happened. And he said to the scorpion, "Why would you do that? It's insanity. I'm about to die and drown, but so are you. Why would you do that?" And the scorpion says, "Because I am a scorpion. I'm asking you to beware, not only to recognize the opportunity, but to sense the danger and get so good you can smell it. Get so good you can recognize the signals. Be wise here." Now, in closing, take these notes. I gave a speech one time, and the title was, "Today I'm a Wealthy Man." Let me give you my notes. They're very brief. It didn't have that much to do with money, interestingly enough. Here was my list. My heritage, I said, created great wealth for me by virtue of place and birth. I fell heir to stuff I never paid for. It's called heritage, falling heir to stuff you never bought. Yes, we must be wise caretakers, but you've got to always appreciate your heritage. Democracy is a heritage. Free enterprise is a heritage. Our parents, our heritage. A free and open society, our heritage. Books to read and libraries to walk into. People pay the price. We fall heir to it. Asking you to learn to appreciate that. It's wealth. Next, I said I'm wealthy because of my experiences. In fact, we call it a wealth of experience. Commodity, coin, currency, the stuff I've been through. Yes, the heartbreaks and the shadows and all the rest, and the time that I was scared and the time that I was okay. All those experiences have brought me to this remarkable place. I'm grateful for those experiences. They are now treasures for me. Next, I said I'm wealthy because of my knowledge. Knowledge is wealth. Knowledge is power. Gather it up, soak it up like a sponge, and memorize it until you can quote it forwards and backwards, no matter how many times you've heard it before. Knowledge. Next, I said I'm wealthy because of my future. Who could have thought foreign board from Ida would have ever had the chance? What a bit of wealth that is for me. It's beyond measure. Next, I said I'm wealthy because of my friends. You've got to have some of those friends. People who know all about you and still like you. You've got to have some of those. Someone said, make the kind of friends on your way up who will take you in on your way down. Good friends. Cultivate your friends. Don't lose your friends. Create some lifestyle for your friends. Don't just dazzle your family. Dazzle your friends with your present time and resources and ability to craft with your hands and fashion a good life. Next, I said, I'm wealthy because of my love experiences. There is no greater wealth than love. The ancient prophet said there are many virtues and there are many values, but the greatest is love. Who can describe the length and the breadth and the height and the depths of love? Can't be measured by any measure. All we know is it's unfathomable. A love experience. One person caring for another is beyond all cash in the bank. It's beyond all things tangible and touchable. It's beyond all things seen. Better to live in a tent on the beach with someone you love than to live in a mansion by yourself. There is no greater experience. So at all cost, protect your love experiences, family and people you care about beyond measure. And now here's my 3 challenges to you, and we're finished. Here's the first one. Let others lead small lives, but not you. I hope that rings a bell, especially after the time we've spent together. Let others cry over small hurts, but not you. Let others complain over non-essentials, but not you. Don't lead a small life. Lead an expanding life, a growing life, a nourished life, a flourishing life. Here's the next one. Let's not just help people with their jobs. Let's help people with their lives. And that's what this experience is all about. Not only helping people earn the money, but help people learn the skills. And help people like I've tried to help you today design a better life and be mindful of the things that it takes to build something that gives you self-esteem beyond belief. Let's work on that. Let's help people with their goals. Let's help people with their vision. Let's help people with their sight. Let's help people with their self-esteem. We're all capable of it. Our reach is beyond belief. We can talk this stuff. You've got the language. You've already got the flow. You've got the vocabulary. Let's just expand it and make it grow until we touch people in an unusual way so that they'll never be the same after you touch them. They'll never be the same again, and someday they'll reach back in their experience and remember the day they got touched by you and your experience. Now here's the last one. There's an ancient script that says this: if you work on your gifts, they will make room for you. If you work on your gift of language, if you work on your gifts and skills, if you work on personal development until you become more valuable this year than last year, more valuable next year than this year, more valuable in terms of enterprise, more valuable in terms of learning and teaching and inspiring, if you'll work on all of your gifts, I promise you, there will be important places for you to function. Life will find you some extraordinary places if you'll work on your gifts and be ready when those places arrive. And for you to have enjoyed with me this remarkable occasion where my gifts have brought me, someday I want to come and sit in and watch where your gifts have brought you. And hopefully all that we've covered in this little while will help you to arrive at some special places. Let's do it together. God bless. Thank you. I toast you. Thank you.